I'd like to pull item number 9, the annual commission board reports.
Yeah, that's a good one. Would there be anything else that anybody would like to pull? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
As amended?
Yep.
As amended.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ms. Turner, you have the annual boards and commissions.
I did, and I think for the public, this is a book that we get once a year at City Hall. This is a report from each of the chairmen of 12 of our commissions. And these annual reports include descriptions of what the commissions have done during the year. Some include goals for the coming year. And I guess I just feel like it's a disservice to all our volunteers to have this put under consent agenda without any discussion or acknowledgement from the council.
I'd have to agree. I'd like to see the chairpersons come and just kind of give a quick speech, because I know I've learned an awful lot by reading through a lot of that book, and I'm sure there was more details there than what meets the eye. But I would wholeheartedly agree, and see if the chairpersons from each board would kind of give us another 5 or 10 minutes of their time to go over their presentation would be wonderful.
And maybe break it up between meetings, since we do have 12 commissions. It is an awful lot, or just have it, break it up over 3 or 4 meetings. But I think it's important. I think that these commissions have met, most of average at least 10 times a year. It's a lot of volunteer hours. They've covered a lot of different issues and have a different insight. And I just think it's kind of a shame to just leave it like that on a consent.
Sure, I'll set up some meetings and have them come between 2 or 3 meetings, 4 meetings.
Great.
That'd be wonderful.
That's okay.
Good.
Yeah.
With that, I move for approval.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
4A. Ms. Bach, would you read that?
Sure. An ordinance of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, amending Section 2-51 of the Code of the City of Vero Beach relating to the order of business for City Council meetings, providing for conflict and severability, providing for codification, and providing for an effective date, requested by Mayor J. Kramer.
All right. I guess this one is mine, so I'll tee that one off. This is simply the moving of the public, the open mic time of public comment, and that would be placed, good grief, after, when did we say a city attorney's matters, or after the city council matters?
Actually, all this ordinance does is removes the order of business
the old language,
from the ordinance, and it says that you'll adopt it by resolution, which you have later on in the meeting.
Okay, so the sister ordinance there is the 5A.
Right.
I think this provides us the flexibility to
Right.
be able to change the order of business by resolution as opposed to by ordinance.
The enabling ordinance. I'll make a motion to approve.
Open public hearing.
Well, it's kind of a catch-22. It's not really official until we have a second, and then we can. Or do you want to do it?
No, you have public hearing before you even make your motion.
We'll open it to public hearing. Closing public hearing. Council members. I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Second it.
All right, so we got 2 motions to approve. I'll give that one to you, Mr. Winger. Tammy, would you call the roll?
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mr. Winger?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Old?
Yes.
Mayor Kramer?
Yes. 4B.
An ordinance of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, amending Sections 2-102 and 2-105 and Article 3, Commission and Boards of Chapter 2, Administration of the Code of the City of Vero Beach relating to city commissions and boards, providing for a transition, providing for codification, providing for conflict and severability, providing for an effective date, requested by Councilmember Pilar Turner.
Okay. Ms. Turner, this is yours.
Yes, I'm proposing 2 changes into our utility commission, and the first one being to further preserve the utility customer representative nature of the commission. The Utilities Commission shall be made up of 3 members that are residents of the City of Vero Beach and 3 that are residents of the unincorporated Indian River County. Also include all regular voting and alternate members shall reside within the city utility service area. That's the way it currently reads. or be a principal owner, partner, member of an active business registered with the Florida Division of Corporations located within the city utilities service area. And then a technical definition of business. And the reason I propose this is that I think that the focus for the Utilities Commission is that these be utility customers of VERO utilities, whether commercial or residential. They're all utilities customers, with customers being the key thing as far as membership on this commission. And I'd also like to have it more representative of the customer base that we serve.
That's right. Anytime you have, may I speak? Anytime you have a board or a committee that has to do with the enterprise fund, it should be representative of the people who are subject to that fund. And so you take, for example, planning and zoning. Planning and zoning doesn't have anything to do with outside of the city with that enterprise fund, and so it's made up of city residents. When it comes to something, any board or committee that has to do with the enterprise funds, you have people who have businesses in the city, you have people who live in the city. That board or those people should have the opportunity to be representative, and so I'm going to agree with.
Mr. Mayor, a question. Does this terminate our ability to appoint someone to the Utility Commission?
I believe that does.
Mr. Mayor, I've got several. I guess I'm violently opposed to this. In April 5th and 6th of 2011, something was done that was very undemocratic. What happened was that the Utility Commission was disbanded, and the majority of City Council, some 3 people, had the power to appoint all the representatives. You know, our Congress, I'll take the House Appropriations Committee or the Ways and Means Committee, there is facility there so that the minority gets a proportional representation on those committees. By us being able to appoint our own person, it prevents from happening what happened in 2011, and it prevents a majority of 3 of stacking the commission and letting the entire commission go. Unfortunately, when the commission was let go, some negative consequences happened with the new members. I don't blame them particularly, but the electric thing dragged on. My second objection is, why try to fix something when it's not broken? And the third is, what we're suggesting is the people, third and fourth, the people of Vero Beach that own this utility would now only get 3 votes out of the 7. And of course, Indian River Shores, we all agree, should have a vote. But I would like to point out to you that there are 52,600 utility hookups of one form or another, if you take into account the garbage, the wastewater, the reuse water, the electric. And if you discount Indian River Shores, who has their own representation, of those 34,900 of them, for what it's worth, are city residents. And yet you're saying that, 2/3 of the hookups are city residents, but they're only on their own city utilities and their own boards, which they own. They're only going to get 3 out of 7 representatives. This is clearly an attempt for a future majority to stack commissions. And I would lastly like to make the point that I think it's valuable to have people with different points of view. We have the Indian River Shores representative here, and he's been a very positive, as a matter of fact, point of view. I don't always necessarily agree with him, but it's positive to have different points of view. And what happened in 2011, April of 2011, we appointed people all with the same view. We didn't have the conversation. And so what is being attempted here, I think, is a gross misrepresentation, a gross violation of democracy. And I think we should stay with what we have. With that, I rest my case.
I feel that the Utility Commission is very good right this second. I'd like to keep it the way it is. I don't see why we wouldn't be able to appoint our own reps. And I think my main thing is not trying to fix something that's not broken. I like the way it is right now.
Would you like to?
Certainly, I have a few comments.
Sure.
First, I would say the Utility Commission addresses the enterprise funds. I do not hold this or share your opinion that the electric utility is owned by the city. I think the electric utility is owned by the utility customers. They're the ones who paid the bonds and who keep the business going. They're the ones who provide the revenue to support the system. Earlier, when we had discussions about utility authority, Mr. Winger, you said, "Oh yeah, we're ready to give representation or adequate representation to all our customers." So, in essence, that's what I'm asking you for to do here, is to give a representative of the customer mix of this $100 million business that we have.
I agree.
If you have 35,000 out of 52,000, proportional would be 5 people should be from Vero Beach. I'm sorry. And also to ask a minority, and I was a minority a good time on the city council, to give up their representation and let the majority appoint all the seats, I think is a gross miscarriage of justice. And to say that the people of Vero Beach don't own these utilities, whether it happens to be water and sewer, reuse water, the garbage, which I'm including in the calculation, and all the rest of it, is purely not so. Legally, they do own it. It belongs to them. And yes, the customers are important. And yes, having outside representation is important. But legally, it belongs to them. And, look, contingent liabilities, because something we're going to have to talk about here someday. But if something goes wrong, as it did with San Leandro in California, outside San Luis Obispo, or 3 Mile Island, or Crystal River, this city is on the hook for 1.4% of anything that goes wrong. The city is, not the outside customers. The city, of anything that goes wrong, it could be billions of dollars. So we're on the hook for 1.4% of anything that goes wrong. Yes, it's unlikely that it'll happen, but it certainly happened in Japan, it's happened in Russia several times, and it's happened in the United States. The people of this town are on the hook for that contingent liability, and the same is true of whatever may be under the plant, if we ever know what's under the plant. And the same thing is true of a whole flock of other contingent liabilities. The outside customers aren't on the hook for that. So clearly the people of this town are on the hook and own the utilities. And we're glad to have the outside customers, but I've got to protect the people of this city.
Mr. Winger, I believe you're right in one regard. Those folks, city residents would be on the hook, but don't forget about the people who have businesses within the city that help to generate money for the city. They have just as big, if not a bigger, portion of generating funds for us than the residents. So they should be represented as such.
I would like to make an amendment to this ordinance and propose that it just includes the changes that would allow for a business owner of city utility service to be on the board of the Utility Commission.
That's perfectly okay if they live within the city service area. But, you could have somebody living in Fellsmere and they have a real estate office here and a real estate office in Fellsmere. You're getting into the most contorted thing. What you're trying to do is put one particular person on and make an exception for a person. That's not the way American democracy is supposed to work. That's special interest, and that's what you're trying to do, Mr. Turner. I'm sorry.
Before we get too further, is there any members of the public who want to speak on this? 1, 2.
This is just a question for the public in case they don't know, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but there are 7 members and then there are alternates. 5 of the members Each of the 5 is appointed by a member of City Council. Myself, I'm member at large, so I was elected by the 5 members of City Council, and then there's the Indian River Shores representative. If we were to change that, what would the mechanism be for someone being on Utilities Commission?
It would be like all the other or the majority of the other commissions that we have in the city, that they are voted on by the council.
So all of the members would be voted on the way I was.
They
So
would be dismissed, and the majority of council members would then appoint them. So, I mean, potentially, this is why a minority member wants to change this so that a majority gets to pick all the members does not make any sense.
Okay. But I'm just talking about in terms of the mechanism then. Would City Council be voting on 6 out of 7 people? You wouldn't vote on Indian River Shores, presumably.
Correct.
I'm just trying to be objective about it. So City Council would vote on 6 of the 7 members. Is that correct? Okay. I just wanted to be sure I understood it. Thank you.
And also, Mrs. Moss, there are 2 other commissions, Finance and Planning and Zoning, which happen to be the core commissions. Planning and zoning is important because it's things like building heights and where buildings go. Finance is important because it's things like budget and money and borrowing money and so on. The 3 core commissions are appointed one way to be sure that if you're a minority or the majority, both sides are represented, much as they are in Washington or in Tallahassee. That's the reason it was done.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I agree. The Finance Commission and Utilities Commission are probably,
core.
probably critical, yes.
They're critical.
If we did adopt this,
Thank you.
Wayne, if we did adopt this, what would happen to the people that are on there now? Would it change what we have on there now?
Well, it would. One thing it calls for is 3 city residents, 3 unincorporated county residents, and of course the 1 Indian River Shores. I don't know what the makeup for sure is right now of the board members where they're located, but I believe there's 3 from Indian River Shores right now, so you may have to lose 2 of those.
That's true.
And you'd have to pick up 2. You may have to just readjust the membership if you went with those membership requirements.
Couldn't you go with having a representative utility commission and still have appointments?
You just have to figure out a mechanism who would pick what members as far as residency in or out of the city. That's the only thing you'd have to figure out.
Couldn't you just say, if I want to appoint somebody in the city, and you say, well, we're representative of the city, you need to pick somebody in the county. I mean, then you say, okay, well then here's my county option, right? Yeah. Or vice versa.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to reject this, but once we finish public comment.
Okay.
So you're asking to table it to the end? Is that what you're asking?
No, he's actually just rejecting it outright. Mr. Day, you wanted to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. For the record, Ken Daig, 1846 21st Avenue. The way you have the makeup now on your Utilities Commission, your Finance Commission, your P&Z Board, the individual council members, you have your pick. You structured this, I don't know how many years ago. It's kind of working okay now the way you're doing it. I think you're just asking for trouble by changing this all around. It really is very confusing to a lot of people. A lot of people, have asked me about it. I've sent them over here to City Hall and said, go ask them. Maybe they can explain it better. It is confusing, folks. There was some talk tonight about a utility authority. People wonder about that. Well, what is a utility authority? That's a conversation you've all had, a while ago. As far as the utility, it is an enterprise fund. It is a business, just like our water and sewer is a business. Our trash is a business. It's a business. The city taxpayers, as long as we're alive right now, we have a vested interest in that. When you look at other corporations, their business, some corporations serve a lot of people. Those lot of people that they're serving, unless they're buying stock, if it's available to them, they don't have any say in that company. That company runs it according to the way they see fit and the way they want to make their profits and the way they set their rules up. And the rules that, that come under state guidelines and federal guidelines, they have to follow those rules. But these are businesses. Now, at the end of the day, if we really run into a serious problem with the utilities, the electric, since you're talking about that, the city taxpayer is on the hook. If there's whoopses made or whatever, at the end of the day, we're going to have to pay for that. Whatever's in reserve, if there's a major problem, it's going to have to be paid for. Also, if it's not handled correctly, it can bankrupt the city real quick, real fast. I really like our city. I don't want to, I don't want our city to fall away by making a mistake. It's like if you bring in someone that owns and operates a business, are they a resident here? Do they live overseas? Do they really have a vested interest here? Are they a limited liability corporation? And the ones of you that don't, I know most of you up there know what a limited liability corporation is. Here in the state of Florida, if they start having trouble, they can shut them down real quick. They can shut down real quick, grab their money, and run. So you can have that type of representative on there. You don't really know. Right now, what you're doing when you do your pick, the way I see it, is you'll usually pick someone that you feel is qualified to handle the job and kind of mirrors a little bit of your philosophy as an elected official. The folks out here in voting land, if we're not happy with the elected officials sometimes, or their picks, because they do watch this, the ones that have the vested interest here, when the voting time comes around, they vote you out. Then they look to bring somebody else in. I think what you're doing now, it's not the best in the whole wide world, but it's kind of working okay. I think if you do this now, you're just going to, I think in the long run, you're actually going to hurt yourselves and hurt the city. Leave it alone. It's kind of working. You got other things to do right now. You're very busy. You'll probably have to revamp the other commissions because then you're at a balance. Right now, you got somewhat of a balance in the city. I would humbly ask you to kind of just leave it alone for now. Maybe in a year change it, or maybe go towards the utility authority if that's your wishes. Thanks.
Is there any other member of the public that'd like to speak on this?
Then I'll make a motion to reject
Okay.
4B.
No?
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll second that, and the reason being, my political instincts, I look at the board right now, it's 5-7 in favor of the county, and then you want to go to 4-3 in favor of the county. You already got more than what you're asking for. And then the idea is that when we come back to reconstitute, then you got the 3 majority that are going to pick everybody. You can pick people in the county that are not, going with the so-called political movement. So it's, you guys have got the advantage already. I don't know why you want to give it to the majority to just pick everybody. It just doesn't make sense. So with that, I'll second it. Is there any further discussion? If not, go ahead and call the question. Tammy, would you call the roll?
Mr. Howell?
No.
Mr. Winger?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
No.
Mr. Old?
Yes.
Mayor Kramer?
Yes.
Passes 3-2.
Resolution 5A.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, adopting the order of business for City Council meetings and related supplemental rules, providing for conflict and severability, and providing for an effective date, requested by Mayor J. Kramer.
All right, this is, we did the enabling, and this is where we decide where we want to put the agenda item. Wayne, am I now correct on that?
Yes. Actually, this is entirely up to the council how you want to structure your meetings, obviously. We did do some tweaking and kind of some streamlining because of the way things have been being done at meetings, not just moving the general public comment to after the main business of the council. For instance, we had talked about still allowing for special presentations, which you often get, but in the rules, if you adopt them, it does provide for those presentations by the public to be approved by a council member,
Okay.
or be sponsored, so to speak. Also, we do have a subsection. You often have staff or consultants that have been hired by the city to do special reports or information. I know Tammy and I talked about maybe lumping all that together for presentation items. It's your call, however you want to do that. So it's, I mean, this is subject to modification however you feel you want to have it laid out in your agenda.
Okay. Is there anybody from the audience?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council Ken Digg, 1846 21st Avenue. I have a question. When you have your presentations, when folks put in to speak before you all, sometimes you'll vote on a presentation on a given item, but you don't have. How would you have public input if, like, somebody wants to come up to address you before you vote on it? Because people won't know. Sometimes you'll vote on stuff that's there, sometimes you don't.
Well, I got to say, I kind of messed up at the beginning of the meeting because when we went ahead and we did the alcohol ordinances, I was supposed to open it up for public comment. So typically when we have the vote, and I know, Wayne, you'll try to kick me under the table from there, but we really should be opening up for public comment before a vote.
Yeah,
So it's clear in my head. You have a presentation. Again, sometimes you vote and sometimes you don't, just depending on what it calls for. It's at your pleasure. So if you're getting ready to vote, if they raise their hand, it would be up to the presiding officer to recognize them. So, okay. So it sounds like you'll be pretty flexible with that.
Any matter, as the mayor said, would be open for public comment. The only thing that sometimes won't be is if it's a quasi-judicial matter, you know about those things.
I just wanted to just to bring that to you, because I was just trying to figure out, so your meetings are not interrupted, because I know what you're trying to do to keep things on an even keel here. People don't want to interrupt you, when you're getting ready to vote. But anyway, thanks.
Okay. Laura?
Is it getting cold?
Laura Moss, Utilities Commission. As I said earlier, I would just encourage you to leave it at the beginning of the meeting and just enforce that 3-minute rule, because honestly, I mean, if you move it back, I mean, you still wouldn't be up to public comment right now. And this is a meeting that began at 6, and it's 20 after 8. And if you want to talk for 3 minutes, you shouldn't have to wait almost 3 hours to do it. I mean, it just seems reasonable to leave it up front and enforce that 3-minute. And I think that 3-minute rule, and I think that would solve your problem. I know it is a problem. I agree with you, but I think you could solve it with that 3-minute limit. Thank you.
Well, there are those that want the 3-minute rule interaction. I mean, they just do. They want the attention.
I think the 3-minute rule is valid and it's important, and if it's something you want to hear, something that you need to hear, you obviously let it go a little bit longer, 5 minutes, whatever. But I don't think no one needs to talk for 20 minutes. And you can reserve time in advance, as the people did today. But you don't make the person wait 3 hours to talk for 3 minutes. That's all I'm trying to say. Thank you.
Right.
Mr. Mayor, I've already gone on the record stating this. I'll state it again. I'm not against what you're proposing here. But in the interest of efficiency for the council, in the interest of the people who want to speak, I want to make a suggestion, and that is, what if we stringently, 3 minutes probably isn't enough, but what if we stringently held people to a 5-minute rule? And if they want to go beyond 5 minutes, then they can sit down and then they can wait until the end of the meeting. That way we can listen to what they have to say. 5 minutes is enough time for anybody to present anything that they want to present during a meeting. Anything beyond that is probably going into subject matter that doesn't have to do with much. So what I'm asking is, would it be a good idea to come to an accord of sorts and say, you know what, we want to respect the people who want to speak. We'll give them 5 minutes. Past that, you can sit down. We'll talk to you again after the meeting if you like.
The problem is enforcement. Like I say, there are those that want the confrontation, and they want to take it to the point that we'd have to have a police officer come up and escort them out. And then that's the news story that they were after.
So for the failure of the mayor to take charge of the meeting, we're going to punish all of our citizens by taking away the privilege of public comment at the beginning of the meeting.
No, we're going to reward those that have lawyers that sit there that have to pay for those lawyers while everybody's at public comment. We're putting them ahead of the city council when the city council's time to talk. We're putting the public first. But what we're doing is we're taking care of the public's business first, and then they can have the open mic time to talk. And during the public business, they have the opportunity to weigh in on all of the issues.
Other
I asked
organizations do it, and it works well. Let's try it and just see how it works. And if it doesn't work well, if there's an outcry about it, let's move it back again. But let's give it a shot, see how it works.
I asked Ms. Vach to do some research for me, and looking at public comment within the city of Vero Beach, we have a long history of having public comment at the beginning of the meeting, of letting our citizens have that privilege of being involved. Since 1982, when public comment first appeared on our agendas, it has been at the beginning of the meeting. Floated a little bit, maybe, but it has been there since 1982. In September 2007, there was another movement to move public comment. And you know what? Guess what the offenders were at that time? Frank Zork, Brian Hetty, and Joseph Gafanti. And because of their participation in public comment, this came up again. I don't think anybody here on the dais can tell me that by moving public comment to the end of the meeting, you are not going to curtail public comment. Can anyone tell me that public comment will not be curtailed by moving it to the end of the meeting?
We're not trying to curtail public comment.
But it will be by this action, and because of that, I couldn't support it. I do have a suggestion, however. If you are intending moving it at all, that you at least move it no further down the agenda than after public hearings, and that you would at least have public comment after public hearings, so it's as early on the agenda as possible.
So you want to
at least after item number 4.
You want to move it down?
No, I don't want to move it down. I want to leave public comment exactly where it is, but I'm offering you an alternative, a compromise position. And since we have placed this under a resolution, that it can be changed more easily than under an ordinance.
Mayor Kramer, could we give that perhaps a trial run?
I think we ought to try it where you have it, where you've suggested it. And if it doesn't work, we'll move it around again. Now, let's go with what you're suggesting.
Well, I'm not trying to get this to be a political football. I mean, one of the nice things about moving this closer to the end is that we can get more engaging and actually respond, and without having to worry about
get the sort of business out of the way.
People giving us the eyes, like, move on. You know, I mean, we do get an awful lot of pressure on that. It's going to be at the discretion of the mayor when it changes throughout the years. The enabling ordinance is there so that we can change it whenever we'd like. I'd make a motion to approve as is.
I second it.
This is a resolution. Is anybody who would like to talk any more on this at council or public?
I have a question.
Certainly.
Thank you for the time, Mr. Mayor. Ken Degg, 1846 21st Avenue. I forgot where I live for a second. I had thought when you had the special speakers come in, like when you have attorneys here, and I do know that they're sometimes terribly expensive, isn't it your option to put them very first?
It can be, yes.
That's what I thought.
You know, if we're aware of them. If there isn't any, I'll go ahead and call the question. Ms. Fogg?
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mr. Winger?
What are we voting here? Yes means we're accepting it as
To
written?
approve.
That is correct.
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
No.
Mr. Old?
Yes.
Mayor Kramer?
Yes.
Passes 4-1.
And I got to say, Ms. Turner, I really appreciate what you're saying and meeting me halfway on that, and it was very tempting. I think it's something that later on we can bring up and see if that does work. Item 5B.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, repealing Resolution 211-25, authorizing the City Manager and Director of Finance to issue warrants, checks, and vouchers of the City of Vero Beach for the payment of funds from any of the depositories utilized by the City and providing for an effective date, requested by the Finance Director.
Just as a comment on this, we had the Assistant Finance Director resign, and so therefore we are removing his name from these warrants, and so it'll be myself and the Finance Director.
So this is just a signatory
Yes.
change?
Yes, sir.
Cindy, you walked in the room. Was there anything that you wanted to, just in case? Well, does the council have any questions on this? The
No,
public?
just sorry to see Javier gone.
Well,
By the
Thank
way,
you
he
for
got a
his
very good
service.
appointment as a finance director of City of St. Cloud, so it was
Oh.
a real good promotion, and he is from the Orange County area.
Thank you so much, Mr. Connor, for sharing that. That's great news, and I wish him all the best. in
He was
service
under
well.
good training by a good finance director.
Yes.
I was amazed
Mr.
to find out
Connor,
that
what
he
is
was
the plan to
commuting from
replace him?
Kissimmee.
Cindy's a
Every
one-armed
day.
band as it is.
Yeah.
We are working under maybe a reorganization a little bit to try to diversify some of the workload.
Oh.
It will
Thank
not
you.
create more jobs. We're not.
I didn't say
Yeah, remains the same. Okay.
Move for approval.
I'll second.
Okay. This is a resolution. Ms. Falk, would you call the roll?
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mr. Winger?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Old?
Yes.
Mayor Kramer?
Yes. Item 5C.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, providing for city manager authority to grant licenses for use of certain city-owned real property and to accept conveyances of utility improvements, providing for conflict and severability, and providing for an effective date. Requested by the city manager.
What we're trying to do here is for temporary licenses. For example, the McKee Gardens use of that property. Under this, I would be able to sign off on those temporary. I cannot sell your property or the city's property, and so those type of transactions. It does allow us to accept conveyance of easements, for example, in the STEP program and for utilities.
Yeah, the one non-temporary is for docks. 99% of these are residential, like in the fingers. And we're just trying to speed up the process, basically, for applicants and property owners. And they're kind of perfunctory that to bring them to the council. There's really not usually, I can't think of why there'd be an objection for someone having a dock behind their house. The other thing is that there was a prior resolution where the city manager is already authorized to accept the utility easements. And what we did, that often if the developer or the property owner has put in some utility improvements, the city then also has a bill of sale that is typically accepted. So we put that in there too, because he's typically should be approving that along with the easement when that comes across his desk.
Mr. Comment on the docks, yeah. As far as have you ever seen any amendment to our general contract that they have been accepted by the owners? We've never seen any exception to those, have we?
No exception, but acceptance, typically the ones you've seen have been executed by the property owner because we do a license agreement. In fact, we recently updated that license agreement we don't call them dock licenses anymore. We're calling them submerged land licenses.
Submerged lands, yeah.
Because that's really what it is. They're getting a small plot of land that's underwater and they get to use it for their dock.
Thank you.
And we did one tonight under consent agenda.
Yeah.
As far as I know,
And that's what
they've
we've done
never
most of.
pulled one off. So.
Okay. Is there any member of the public who'd like to speak on this? If none, council.
I'll make a motion to approve then.
Second that motion.
Okay. If there's not any further conversation, Tammy, would you call the roll?
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Mr. Winger?
Yes.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Old?
Yes.
Mayor Kramer?
Yes. Public notice items. Ms. Fogg.
This item will be heard at our March 1st, 2016 meeting. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Vero Beach, Florida, adopting permit application fees for solicitors and vehicle for hire drivers, providing for conflict and severability, providing for an effective date, requested by the Planning and Development Director.
Okay. You're still up with City Clerk's matters.
I have none.
Okay. City Manager's matters.
I have a couple items. One is the discussion regarding the potential elimination of the electric utility impact fee. We presented this to both the Utility Commission and the Finance Commission. They are recommending our suggestion to the City Council to eliminate the impact fees. And talking to our consultants, we are probably the only city in the state that have impact fees in the electric utility. And so therefore, if this is something you would like to consider, we'll prepare the documents to remove that from our rate class.
Mr. O'Connor, you said this generates about 60,000 approximately.
Now, it's about 158,000 round numbers. We had a little over 200 budgeted, but it's a limited use. only for capital projects, and so it's sort of squirrely as to what it is, but it's less than 0.02% of our revenues.
What this will take is, it's not an ordinance change. It's just in the tariffs that go to the PSC and get approved, and in consultation with the rate consultants that working with the city now, that would be part of the updated tariffs that would go to the PSC for approval. It would be removed from the tariffs.
Thank you.
How long have we had this impact fee? I'm just curious, since we're the only ones who, we're one of the few municipalities that have this.
Well, others
How long
have tried.
has this been in existence?
Others have tried.
It's been away. If you look at the tariff sheet that's attached, this sheet was filed with the PSC in October the 1st of 1991. So that's when these impact fees appeared in our tariffs was 91. So 20, can't do the math in my head right now. Many years.
And since we're, I guess, quoting or referencing our utilities, our rate study, can you give us an update on when that we will see the rate study?
Our plan right now, and we spoke with the Finance Commission about it the other day, is to probably toward the end of May bring it back to Utilities and Finance for their next round of commentary on it, and then after that to Council.
Okay, because I'm obviously hearing it in public, where is our $775,000 a month reduction in our electric rates, that we were supposed to get from our OUC contract, and we're not seeing any reduction.
Well, we actually did make a reduction in the rates on December the 1st as a result of our rate consultant taking their model and putting into it what at that time we projected the impact in 15-16 was going to be on our purchase power costs and also on our labor costs as we close the plant. So we had that rate increase, one rate increase in December predicated on those changes. And so the question is, how soon do we get another predicated on completely shutting down the plant? And so we did have a portion of that rate increase in December was because of that 15-16 projection that included the revised contract.
And yet at the same time, we're seeing our purchase power costs go up. And I'm seeing our Stanton 2 that we've already, busted the budget on that one in the first quarter. So,
again, the rate consultant would take all the actual experience of the last few months, fold it into their model to update it. But the thing to remember too is the rate study is not just about that. When you looked at the preliminary rate study last year, they're asking you to make some decisions about how you allocate cost of service. Okay. We're looking at all the other fees and fee schedules, things like impact fees, which came up in our first round. So there's really more to it than just the pure rate making. It's really a full update to all the tariffs and charges and the way that we apply them. So,
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Actually, our average power costs, Stanton 2, if it's closed, it's closed. But the average power cost, taking into account the new OUC, which was weighted in future years, not for the current year, but taking OUC, St. Lucie, Stanton 1 and Stanton 2, the average power cost has been trending down for the last 3 months for what it's worth. If you average them all together, it's true at any one point in November or December, St. Lucie was shut for a period of time. We only got half the power there. St. Lucie became more expensive than OUC. But in general, the trend, and it isn't, the trend because gas is continuously less expensive. It's around $2 now for 1,000 BTUs. But basically 100. Well, I got the decimal wrong. But basically, our power cost has been going down. If you take all of it and average it together for what it's worth, I'd be glad to furnish you the number, Mrs. Turner, if you like. But it is true that any one plant at any one time could be a problem. If they shut it, they shut it.
Well, if you're looking at the power bills, they've gone down quite significantly, and I look forward to that study to see when we can get some rate savings back to our customers.
In addition to the ones that we've already done. Absolutely.
Right.
Thank you. Mr. Zork, did you have some comments that you'd like to?
Good evening. Tim Zork, 1801 27th Street. I believe I was here about 29 years ago when this fee was originally put into effect. I have a copy of the Resolution 8759 that originally put the fee into effect. And at that date, I believe I was part of a group with some others, Peter Robinson, a few other folks that were impact fees were just starting to come from California to Florida, and that's when they all started to begin to take shape. And I believe Vero Beach has been primarily the only one in the state that's had an electric impact fee. I think there was maybe Jacksonville Beach had one for a while, or somebody had one, but I think we're kind of the last man standing on this issue. So,
well, we are kind of the last man standing, but it's like anything in government. You get a fad, and everybody picks it up, and then they slowly start.
Even at the same time, the hospital actually looked at coming up with an impact fee for something for hospital services, and that one didn't make the cut. So back in 1987, when they were originally put in, the single-family residential fee was $350. Today, it's about $550. But some of the hidden costs that are behind it, when you look at the New Hampton Inn hotel that opened up, theirs was $65,000. The Center for the Arts that Mr. O'Connor and myself met on a number of years ago, theirs was $114,000. If you look at the commercial development, they pay 5-6 figure numbers kind of on a regular basis. They're big hits. So I want to speak in favor of supporting the sunsetting or cancellation of the 87 resolution that put it into effect. I think it would be something that the community would appreciate. And, I think it's just time has come to let this fee go by the wayside.
Wonderful. Be a nice day. We can get rid of all utility impact fees, right?
I'd like to get rid of all of them, not just these.
Absolutely. I would agree with you on that.
Great. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Zork.
I'd make a motion if there's no further public comment to approve this.
Well, I think we're just looking for consensus to bring it back.
Yeah, he's got to bring it back with him.
Well, no, I think if you approve, stop collecting it, I think they've already stopped collecting it with the contingency that it may have to be collected in the future.
Correct. We have put that in abeyance.
Well, then I will second the motion by Mr. Winger.
I'm sorry, weren't we going to take this to the utility and the finance thing?
You did.
It
we
did.
did.
It was unanimously approved.
Okay, fine.
All right.
The best
And the actual change in the paperwork will happen when the new tariffs are filed with the PSC and approved.
Got it. That's
Right.
okay. That's where the effectiveness is. Okay. If there's no other conversation, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Mr. O'Connor, your second item.
One other comment on the electric utility. We are scheduling April the 12th, the Utility Commission for Power Services to make the presentation on the optimization study. So we are closing in on that deadline as well.
Okay.
The second thing is approval of the award to BB&T for the Series 216 Capital Improvement Revenue Bond. This is to finance the road construction on Airport Drive. We have a grant from the state Department of Transportation for about $3.3 million. It's going to cost us $1.4, and this is to borrow the $1.4 million over a 15-year period. The interest rate is 2.47, and we just need to have you award the bid to BB&T, and then we'll bring back the contractual documents for your consideration with the terms and conditions.
So why is this happening now? Is this a new project, or this not in the budget, or is this what? I don't understand.
Actually, this project is in the budget, and the borrowing of this money is in the budget.
Oh, okay.
The only difference is we initially contemplated borrowing this money over 30 years. It turns out we cannot do that with a simple bank-qualified loan. 15 is the longest term that we can get, so the debt service might be a bit higher. But yes, this project and this borrowing is in the adopted budget for 15-16.
I do have a couple of questions. First of all, where's the copy of the bid? We didn't get one in our backup.
Right.
And why is there only one bid? When there was quite a few on the bid list itself, that seems odd that we have one bid.
Craig Dunlap and I have talked about it. I can give you a copy of the bid. It's one page. It's pretty much the same terms
Just
and conditions
fine, but it should have been in the backup
as the
to be
Dunlap
complete.
letter. We put it out actually twice, because the first time we put it out, we hadn't put quite enough not to exceed amount in it, and we thought maybe it was because it was small and some things changed, and we put it out again, and both times it was only BB&T. I will tell you, it's a pretty small loan, and we have other business with BB&T. And so they were interested in doing this, and the interest rate is certainly very attractive. But in both occasions, and that's part of the reason I included the list of people we sent it to, on both occasions we got no other bids than BB&T. We just think perhaps it's just too small for the bigger banks to borrow with. to bother with, but for whatever reason, nobody was interested.
I will tell you that we thought that we were going to get some of the local banks that would bid on it because the number was relatively small.
Yeah.
But no return. They all received a copy of the invitation to bid.
It's really
Some of the local
surprising.
banks
And then
received
Wells-
multiple copies of it because I
Yeah,
had
and I
local
think, yeah, Wells Fargo,
people, I had
I mean,
people who had
people-
actually
yeah.
called me from local banks, and I made sure their emails got it as well as their bank got it. And just for whatever reason, it fell in that gap between too small and too big, I guess. I mean,
And Wells Fargo,
nobody
who
was
is our
interested.
principal bank, they didn't bid.
It's too
And got
small
a-
for them.
Obviously got a notice.
You didn't demand a rate or anything like that, right? No. Jeez.
The RFP
we-
is attached. It just says we're doing this project and we'd like to borrow $1.4 million.
I'd still just think it's
That's
worth
amazing.
maybe reaching out, to at least, the local banks and trying to see why we didn't get.
I mean, we did reach out to the local banks twice through the bid and the rebid process to all the ones that are on this list.
Okay, we sent them paper. I'm talking about, picking up the telephone and giving them a call and say, hey, what's the deal? Why, we'd like to work with our local groups. Is there something, about this particular the size, the term, something,
Right.
that,
I
are
can
you
do
just
that.
not interested in public funding? I mean, that could be it too. So
I can certainly do that after the fact. I can't really do that while
No,
the bid process
I
is
understand.
active
No,
because then
I'm certainly-
that introduces another layer. I'm not.
no,
really
I
supposed
certainly
to.
would not want you to do.
But I'd be curious. I really don't
I-
know why they weren't interested, but they really, really weren't.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
yeah, if you'd like, I can see what I can do to after the fact to see what they.
Did this go through finance already? I mean, I know it's
Yeah.
part of the budgeting process.
Yeah,
Did we
it
know
did.
what I'm looking at is I'm looking at this 2.47 and I'm thinking, what's the interest rate that we get on our reserves as far as rate of return? I mean, I'm just wondering if it was better just to pay for this in cash rather than borrow.
First of all, this is 1 cent sales tax money, and you don't have $1.4 million in 1 cent sales tax money without pretty much throwing your 5-year
I got it.
CIP out the
We have the
window.
restrictions.
Yeah, this is what we're paying. So it's not in the general fund. It's in the 1 cent
So the
sales tax
payments
fund.
are being pledged from the 1 cent.
Exactly.
Got it.
That's part of the answer right there. And then again, as far as what we earn on our cash in the general fund, we're restricted as to what kinds of investments we can place it in.
All
So
right,
we're certainly
now
not.
here's the huge question. What if the public doesn't vote for the 1 cent sales tax option?
If the public doesn't vote for the 1 cent sales tax option, this particular loan will be the least of our concerns.
Okay.
I'm not being flippant.
I know, but
I'm not
love the
being
way you-
flippant. We have $700,000 worth of other loans, and probably at this point about $500,000 or $600,000 worth
Right.
of capital lease purchases, which are on. We can give them back, kind of thing.
Don't forget
And
the golf
that-
course.
And and that's what I'm saying. That's the $600,000 worth of loans. And that little over $2 million a year is your only source at this point for all your capital projects, all of your stormwater, and the debt service for all the capital projects we've done in the past. So I would say this 100 and some thousand is probably not the biggest concern.
All right. So we're looking for approval of the,
I'll make a motion to approve it.
okay.
Second.
We have approval, motion is a second. Do
Did we
have
open it to public?
Oh.
I was getting ready to do that.
Okay.
But I appreciate the kick.
Before the motion.
Before the motion.
Any public comment on this matter? If not,
I'll make the motion again.
you'll
Approve it.
I'll second that.
All right, Harry, thanks a lot. If there's no more conversation on this, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And
Motion carries.
We will be bringing back the contract and the terms and conditions of that contract at
Is there
future
any-
meeting.
Just out of curiosity, is there any council member questions for Mr. O'Connor before we move on?
I do have one comment I'd like to make just to make everyone aware. Monday morning, we're planning a planned outage in order for us to change out some switchgear, and it will affect Royal Palm Place, Whippoorwill, Catalina, Coronado, and Anita areas. But it's be less than an hour and a half, so we're scheduling it for 5:30 in the morning. We put door hangers on all doors. Door hangers on all doors of those that be affected.
Does that have anything to do with that recent issue?
Yes, sir. This is the switchgear that went bad, and in the presentation, and I believe each council member received a copy of the presentation I made to the Utility Commission. These switchgears right here that are relatively old, this is what's going out. We're going to this front switchgear, which will make them a more reliable, less maintenance, and at the same time easier to correct any problems.
Great.
And that's what we're changing out in this particular area.
All right. Is there any other further questions for the manager? If not, city attorney.
I don't have anything else.
Yeah.
I do have an issue for
Okay.
a question I'd like for us to comment. I was reviewing the memo from Mayor Brian Barefoot talking about their case, and I guess I'm confused what the city's stance is on what legislative body they think has the authority to rule on this franchise agreement. Being someone who believes in home rule, I feel like our city and any city should be able to determine who gets their right-of-ways, and this is part of what I believe is sent in the franchise agreement. But apparently when we've been in litigation with them, we've said, well, it's the PSC can determine who has this right, and then no, and the other court we're saying it's Supreme Court has to have the authority. Who do we believe has the authority under these franchise agreements? Since we put out two different stories.
Well, franchise agreements and territorial agreements and PSC authority is two different things. Basically, obviously, obviously the Shores is making an argument that the Florida Constitution gives them this right to decide who serves. Well, remember, there's the caveat also that says general law comes into play. General law says PSC has the authority to decide who serves where, and that's the city's position, that it's with the PSC. When it comes to the franchise agreements, the authority they have is they can impose a charge for using those rights away.
But I mean, we're still talking about basic right-of-way things.
But they haven't to date asked for that, but they can. I mean, and that's basically what they can do, is to charge a fee for the use of the rights of way. And remember, a large part of Indian Shores is private neighborhoods anyway. They're not even owned or maintained technically by the town. So that's an issue that I think our attorneys have raised. And in fact have made requests of the town to produce what records they have to show what exactly they have authority over and what they're actually managing and maintaining and what have you. So, I mean, there's a lot of still unanswered questions, but in a nutshell, that's the issue. The constitutional issue was not clearly raised with Judge Cox. It was phrased differently, but now they're asking the PSC to make a decision on whether or not they can determine that, because obviously they probably want the PSC to say, no, we don't make that decision, and then go back to Judge Cox and say, see, you were supposed to decide on that. But if you go back and read Judge Cox's opinion, I don't know if she didn't address the question already, where she said the PSC has authority. So it's still to be all sorted out, basically.
The bottom line is the courts will ultimately determine.
Yeah.
They'll be a judge.
Okay, thank you.
Everyone has their position.
All right. If there's no more questions for the city attorney, we'll go to city council matters. I don't see anything there unless anybody wants to bring up anything on new business. Keep in mind it's just discussionary. If not, we'll go ahead and do the individual council's matters. Season is back. I'm sure everybody is well aware of the traffic that's out there, and a lot of good events are going on. I attended the Camp Haven Gala, and the gals out there at Camp Haven are doing a wonderful job with some of the homeless people, making a huge difference. I would hope that everybody would kind of keep homelessness on their minds as we go through this season. There are an awful lot of people that do need help. The gallery stroll on Friday was wonderful. I think the Arts Village and all the art galleries there on 14th Street are keeping our downtown alive. I'd like to encourage people to continue to go out to those. I did attend the rowing event, although I did leave early, but was able to watch the kids row in on the sculls and talk to some of the rowing club about the the future plans that they have for that property. I did voice some concerns as what was going on, but all in all, I think there's some great things going on out there. Also one of the things that we do, and I would try to talk some of the other council members maybe into doing this, is that we from time to time we get asked to go talk with students in the high schools and talk to them about getting involved in the political process, and maybe they could probably do a better job than we could. But I think a lot of these kids need people to give them some attention and tell them that their voices can be heard and to get involved. Certainly, the skate park has lit the fire underneath a lot of our younger people, and it was really good to see a lot of them here. Although, granted, a lot of them are here for the credit for their schools. But in any case, I got a lot more to go. But in the interest of time, I'll go ahead and pass it off, Mr. Old.
I very much would like to, if there are other school things that come up, I'd very much like to do that. One has come up, and I've signed up for that, but that I think is really key. I completely agree with that. Getting back to the idea of personnel, job descriptions, and that sort of thing, we still have more work to do, and we will get there. Lastly, what I wrote a memo to Jim O'Connor and gave it out to the city council. And this is basically a request that we look at how municipalities that have utilities manage their utilities. I think that we could do well with some advice, some management expertise, some constant advice as to how we can better run our utility business, be it bringing in new ideas for incentives to cut your electricity usage, or to bring in solar, or do we have backups, or are we doing things well? And I think we need some kind of constant advice or help or something from an outside party that tells us the newest things that are going on within the utility business. I think for us to develop that and us to prod for that is hard to do when we've got so many other things to do. I think it would be good to look at ways that we can better manage our utility business. And I think we ought to look for what other cities are doing and can come back with some ideas and search for a way that we can make sure that we don't make big mistakes like we have in the past. And I think people have lost confidence in our ability to run this well. And I think one way to bring some of the confidence back is to get somebody in here to look at it and make sure that we're doing a good job with it.
We are currently doing an optimization study, are we not, Mr. O'Connor?
Yes, ma'am. And I think that Power Services is the company doing that for us. When they come in, the council can feel free to ask any questions and give any direction, and however you want to look at them. But they're very renowned in the power utility business, and I mean, they're looking at our switchgear just like everybody else, and the fusing and the concept of the size of transformers. But Mr. Old, I think that'll be a good opportunity when they come in. That'll be a third party, at least bounce some ideas off of.
Well, that's a one-time thing, and what I'm thinking of is we need something better that's there all the time, that's there looking at us all the time. We've made some mistakes in the past that have cost people a lot of money, ratepayers, and I think that we need to have somebody that's looking over our shoulder all the time so that we're doing a good job here.
I was going to say, Mr. Old, if you look back at the history of our utility, I think overall you'll see that the distribution and transmission of our system has been run quite well. Where we've seen our huge spikes in rates, it's been due to our purchase power cost. And all of this results from our purchase power contracts, FMEA, et cetera, that we're speculating in gas. So this is where we've had these huge spikes. But certainly there are things we can do to improve on our management of the system. But if you look at our reliability and our system compared to other municipalities, I think we're doing pretty well.
Yep. I think we can be using solar more. We can be using incentives more. I think there's lots of things we could be doing that outside parties are doing that we're not. And I think that we ought to constantly be looking at this and have someone that's helping us all the time.
Mr. Mayor, I tend to agree with Mr. Old, but I do think that what Mr. O'Connor put forward, it's a conversation for that particular day. It's a complex business, and I think there's things to learn. So, if you would be agreeable, I'll support you later on.
Hey, I really feel strongly that we're brought in here to really run a city, and the city's business is about $20 million, but the utility business is a $100 million business, and we've not done a good job at running it in the past. Not the employees, but I think the city council hasn't. And I think that we could have expertise telling us where we're off, where we're on, what other people are doing, so that we can much better run it, and not just the service side of it, but bringing in other new things. I don't know what they are, backups or redundancy or solar or incentives to cut it, or I don't know all the possibilities. But for us to come up with those possibilities, I don't think is reasonable. I think we need some kind of outside party that could help us do that, so we could be better.
Mr. Old, I think you're right. We do need to have. I think rebates, incentives are a great idea, and I appreciate you bringing that to our attention. I would not be in favor of having a full-time third-party organization or even a person as part of our local government to kind of oversee how we're doing as far as providing the electricity from the city. But I certainly think that there are companies out there, for example, I could be wrong, but I think FPL will set aside some money every year and give the first X amount of people who want to upgrade their AC system, for example, a rebate. Great idea, because in the long run it saves on electricity usage. But yes, sir, I wouldn't be for having a full-time staff member or a third-party group. I think that the company that's looking at our utility system today is probably sufficient, and you're going to have to repeat that process again down the line.
I just don't agree. I think we need somebody permanently helping us out on a consulting basis, or something, giving us a stream of new ideas. But let's see how these reports come out and see what happens.
Well, I think you're both saying the same thing. I mean, you're saying something on a consulting basis, and a consulting basis is not full time. It's periodically, every so often.
Yeah,
and we do have these guys that, they go to all of these different towns. When Bill Harrington was here, you could ask him what town, and he'd sit there and he'd rattle off all the contracts. I mean, he knows where the market's at. And Ms. Turner was right. This is where we really fall down. I mean, it didn't matter where we got our power sources from. We had problems. FP&L had problems with St. Lucie. That spiked our problems. FMPA had problems. The coal turned against us. The natural gas went down. That was, in hindsight, a pretty bad decision. But having these gentlemen here that are very in tune with the market is something we probably need to have on a periodic basis, to have them come in and look over our shoulder.
I think so. That's all I got.
That's all you got, Ms. Turner?
Yes, I attended our Metropolitan Planning Organization meeting. It's great that they're going to be opening up another walking trail at the park. This is at Martin Luther King. On this Saturday, they'll be having a ribbon cutting. And this has been part of a great effort for increasing the walkability and biking trails within our county. So I think it will be a great accomplishment. Once again, the MPO noted that we have not received our 90% all aboard plans. There was a note from Chris Moore, the Public Works Director, saying that they still expect that with these 90% plans that they will be building a sealed corridor, that will be included in the ready improvements for the railroad crossing. But that remains to be seen. And once again, they're still projecting that we would see those plans by the end of the month. And they had a group from the I-95 project come and speak to the MPO meeting, and they're still looking at a September 2016 completion on that job, which I know some people will be glad to hear. So, report recently about water farming costs, and I know when we're looking at the lagoon that's one of the options that people say, we need to be doing more water farming. Well, the public using public land to store 1 million gallons of water is about $25 a gallon for the year. When you start looking at private water farming, this runs to an average of $316 a gallon per year. So obviously, if anybody was looking at water farming, and public land certainly would be the more cost effective. We've had Ocean Research and Conservation come out with a report that they've been seeing studies that they've done in the C-24 canal. And what they're seeing is that algae originates up in these canals in the fresh water. It'll die out as it progresses through the canals, and it gets into the main Indian River Lagoon, and it starts depositing its nitrogen again into the lagoon and increasing our nitrogen load in the lagoon. There continues to be a great deal of research going on that we want to keep at the forefront of that one. I know tomorrow at 5:30 at the Heritage Center, we'll look forward to hearing the Cultural Arts Village will hopefully be presenting their report to the community, and that's at 5:30. That's it. This one. On February the 24th at 8:30, there will be Castle's Memorial Field. This is in front of Bailey's Medical and Equipment. Over 100 children in the state of Florida have died due to abuse and neglect this year, and it's just really appalling. But we'll invite you all to help remember these children and commemorate their loss. Each of the flags will bear the name of a child. Again, to help on that. And reminder, hope to see everybody at the Rotary Wing Fest on Saturday. It's always a great event. Remember, there will be shuttle parking from Riverside Park. I think that'll be a big help in trying to ease some of the congestion in the area. And I think a boat service as well, Mr. O'Connor?
That's my understanding is they were going to have the boat. They did it last year, and it was just a shuttle back and forth across the water.
Which come anywhere upon point really makes it easy. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Well, Mrs. Turner already reported it, but I want to be sure the public gets it. The public meeting of the Cultural Council will be 5:30 tomorrow at the Heritage Center, 2140 14th Avenue. I'm going to read it because I think it's important. It's a step along the way. It's not, of course, the final step. But the leadership team of the proposed Vero Beach Cultural Arts Village is holding a public meeting to present the reports of the Cultural Arts Village design charrette. This report, presented by the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, is the result of the September 12th public design workshop and the 6-day open design studio held on September 13th and 18th. Interviews with 40 stakeholders and directed by the leadership team of Vero Beach staff. And I do believe there are further steps. One of them will be a report, I believe, from the Cultural Council, our second meeting in March, if I'm not wrong.
I think that's
the 15th.
And they will be reporting where they believe they're on the Art Village. I think it's really an important thing to think about what that area is going to look at, and I applaud what they're doing. And I think we all want to stay closely attuned and supportive of it. I guess that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Howell?
Thank you. There's a Senate bill in Tallahassee right now, specifically Senate Bill 840. You have to forgive me. I'm going to read my own handwriting, which is difficult. I was hoping to have a bigger audience, but maybe some people will watch this, and certainly I ask that the council follow up with what I'm about to ask. This is for municipal power regulation. This is a bill that's been put forth by Senator Wilton Simpson. The bill will require the FMPA to submit independently prepared financial statements to the Public Service Commission. It is important to require the FMPA to value our generation assets so that we know what our investments are worth, but more importantly, so we know the reasonable cost, associated with selling our electric system. Calls and emails can be sent to Senator Simpson's office. The district office phone is 727-816-1120. His Tallahassee office is 850-487-5018. But probably the most efficient way of doing this is to go to www.flsenate.gov/senators/S18, which I know is difficult. Or you could simply Google Wilton Simpson on the left-hand side. There's an option to email him. So, and I ask all of my council members to do the same, please.
Okay, you have that option to make the crucial motion.
That's right. I make a motion to adjourn.
So moved. We are adjourned.
Thank you.